I actually grew up in Hollin Hills. My parents moved here when I was 2 years old. They were the third family to move into the community. They moved in the day that they turned the water on.
This is our second house in the community.
So this house was built in 1964. This was the second phase of Hollin Hills, what was referred to as New Hollin Hills. The house was designed by Davenport, who was the developer. Most of the houses in Hollin Hills were designed by Charles Goodman. But since this was one of the later houses built, I think Davenport just had this idea in his mind and he wanted to try designing the house himself. There's 3 of these houses. They're called Atrium houses. There's a glass atrium in the middle of the house, which gives it a lot of light. Because we have so many trees around us, we actually don't get a lot of natural sunshine except from the atrium. We lived in Arlington for a while, and then we lived in DC for a while. Actually, in DC, we lived in a contemporary townhouse. And we wanted to leave DC and get back into the suburbs. And Bob was familiar with the area. Aside from a few apartments, every place we've lived has been mid-century modern.
The thing I like about this house is we live on the side of a hill and we're surrounded by trees. It feels like you're living in a tree house. The downside to living in this house is since we live on the side of the hill, and that means that we go up and down these stairs between 2 to 4 times each day. The other issue is our parking lot is 80 feet from the house. If we have freezing rain or if we have snow, we generally park at the bottom of the hill.
The atrium area has been significantly revised by a former owner. The atrium was initially larger. The pane of glass came all the way over to those 2 pillars, and the stairs were on the other side of the atrium. So that's probably the biggest change. And also on the lower level, there was not an enclosed entryway and a closet like there is now. That was actually outdoors. So the bottom of the house, the lower level, was like a U. And you walked through the U and you walked through the atrium to the door, and then you came up the stairs, which were over on the other side of the atrium. Another change that was also made by the former owners is they added a room off of the kitchen, kind of like a family room, laundry room area. So that was an addition. And since we've lived here, we've added a screen porch in the back of the house. We did use an architect for the screen porch. We felt that we needed someone who knew what they were doing to actually design it. And she did a wonderful job matching the roof line of the porch to the roof line that was already on the addition. We had a lot of grass, and as the trees grew, we couldn't keep the grass growing. So I've actually put in shade gardens on both sides of the house and cut down a few trees so we could have a perennial garden in the back of the house.
There was a huge locust tree, probably 100 feet tall, in front of the house at one point. And then we noticed we were starting to have some foundation problems. So we've had to put in a commercial grade 50-foot retaining wall in front of the house, which basically is 6 feet in the ground and 6 feet above. And there's actually 2 other retaining walls behind that, and we've had to dig under the foundation and put some cement blocks and tie those into the old foundation. That is something that you don't think about when you first look at the house. You say, wow, it's really nice. But after you've lived here a long time, you know all the ins and outs of what's going on.
I'd have to say my favorite room is the dining room because, as Bob mentioned, you feel like you're living in a treehouse. No matter which direction you look, there's trees. And we also have a beautiful sunset.
When we added the porch on back, it's really nice to have dinner out there.
The one thing I've really appreciated is being in an area that is so beautiful and so remote. There's young families living here with young children, and there's people like us who moved here with young children and stayed, and there's people here in their 90s. They don't want to leave. It's such a nice place to live.